Thanks for having me. I was intrigued by Representative O'Neill's talk. I can't wait to get home and tell my wife Jenny that she's in a suspect category. It's going to help me in a lot of arguments around the house. Again, thank you very much. Where's Claire? Claire and everyone else for having me. I do appreciate your time and your attention. Today I want to talk about the core of my campaign. I'm running for U.S. Congress against Chris Murphy in the 5th District, and we're going to be talking a lot about economics, about jobs, about the national debt, and about the direction that this country is going in. This is not going to cost you anything. Very briefly about myself. I grew up in the district in Farmington. I now live in Plainville. I grew up the oldest of 9 children. Both my parents worked. My mom was a nurse. My father worked for the city. I'm an Afghanistan veteran from '07. I came back and worked for Jody Rell in her administration. Prior to that, I worked for 5 years in the U.S. Congress on trade issues, budget issues, and national security issues. So, just to tell you right off the bat, what's going on in Congress is just as screwy to the people that are working there now as it does seem to you up here. We're hearing a lot about $1 trillion. $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. We didn't used to hear about $1 trillion. We used to talk about billions of dollars when we talked about the U.S. budget. And all of a sudden now, it's trillions. But what does it really mean? You know, has anyone actually stopped and said, what is $1 trillion? And some people have tried to explain it, but I find the pictorial way is the best here. So there's a $100 bill. That's the, maybe you keep that in your breast pocket there, $10,000. A little pile of $100 bills there. That's $1 million. So in a movie, you know, you've got the guy with a briefcase who opens it up and there's $1 million bucks. That's it. There's $100 million on a pallet. Now there's $1 billion. That could probably fit into your garage. $1 billion. $1 trillion. Take a look at this guy here. It's over his head.
Those are double stacked.
Those are double stacked. It looks to be about, I don't know, 4 city blocks or so. This chart is kind of cut off there, but let me explain. What you see in the dark is spending. Those are the high ones. And what you see next to it, and what I guess is kind of salmon or pink or whatever you want to call it, that's revenue. You can see that there's a gap every year going out to 2019 and beyond. It wouldn't be so bad, I guess, if that $2.4 trillion extra spending was a one-shot deal. We were only going to do it 1 year and then try to get back to a balanced budget. But the federal budget plan that we have on the table that's going to be accepted never gets to a balanced budget. In fact, in 2019, we're still $1.2 trillion spending more than we're taking in. This is a best case scenario. It assumes no more stimulus packages and TARPs. It assumes no more Katrinas, natural disasters, and anything else that might come along that would cost money. This is irresponsible. And as you might guess, if you're going to spend $1 trillion more every year that you take in, then you're going to spend more than you take in by $1 trillion, it's going to add up. By 2019, in a best case scenario, it's $17 trillion of debt. Let me just add an asterisk here. As if that wasn't enough, the government's already borrowed $4 trillion from Social Security. So the debt will actually be $21 trillion. The last time we had this kind of debt as a percentage of our economy was right after World War II. Someone's going to have to pay this, and I think you all know that's going to be the taxpayers who are paying it, and that's you all. You may remember this guy on TV from a few weeks back or a couple months back. He was President Obama's first choice for Commerce Secretary. Really plain-spoken guy, not one to exaggerate. New Hampshire guy, fellow New Englander. He runs the Senate, or he's the lead Republican on the Senate Budget Committee. And that's what he says. And I agree. It's unsustainable. You can't spend like this forever. So as Republicans going into this election, and these local elections are critical, and also going in 2010 elections, it's not enough for us to show that there's a problem, because we know there's a problem, but if we just say there is one, they'll ignore us and say, well, it's just Republicans saying that there's a problem, but they haven't offered a solution. Well, I think there's a solution. That's private sector job creation. And I'll just go through quickly 7 points. And I'm happy to talk about it more later. But the first thing is we've got to reduce government spending, because before we do that, everything else is going to be focused on paying that debt. And we all know this is going to lead to higher taxes, so I'll get to that in a minute. But we need to encourage exports at home. We need to start making things again and sending them overseas. We've got a $1.5 trillion trade imbalance. That's killing us. And that's not just because there's cheaper labor overseas. We're the only country in the Western world that taxes goods that are exported. We tax everything that goes overseas. We're the only country that does that. Our products are automatically more expensive when they get to that store overseas. Sell things in other countries. And that gets to my third point. Trade barriers. We're practicing free trade. Very few other countries are. And we need our representatives down there to hold the feet to the fire of our trading partners when they throw up barriers to U.S. products. And they are doing that all over the world. 4, this is a no-brainer. If we raise taxes, we're not creating jobs. We know that. It's intuitive, it's proven. And we shouldn't be punishing the job creators. When we talk about slapping huge taxes on people that make over $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year, a lot of those people are small business owners. And small businesses are responsible for 80% of new jobs in the United States. Now, if they get hit with a tax, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to either lay off someone or they're not going to hire somebody. And that's the path we're going in now. We need to reverse that mindset. And get an education, came up earlier, math and science, and we need to encourage innovation. And we can't do that if we're spending all that money on debt on the interest instead of on things in energy. Getting the country to have an all-of-the-above energy policy where we're using all sources of energy. Sir?
Question. The CO2, they determined it was a pollutant. Okay, so the EPA determined it was a pollutant. From what I read, the tax on the emitters of the CO2 is going to be so overwhelming that it probably cause a 4 or 5% boost in inflation. How can you get that resolved?
Well, you're right. If that cap and trade program is instituted, it's going to cost every American household between $3,000 and $3,300 more per year in electricity. That's going to be out there. Chris Murphy is on the Energy Committee. He has told his supporters that he wants to see that bill come to the floor this year, in the next couple months. It's in the newspapers.